Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
In every pair of Tecovas boots, you can expect handmade quality, first wear comfort, and timeless Western style. Tecovas boots are always made from premium bovine and exotic leathers, and with occasional resoling, they will last a lifetime. The best way to shop for boots is at your local Tecovas store, where you'll be greeted by the smell of fresh leather and a friendly smile. Come on in, grab a cold one, get fitted by a pro, and shop the latest styles. Visit tecovas.com, that's TECOVAS.com, and don't go gently, y'all. In every pair of Tecovas boots, you can expect handmade quality, first wear comfort, and timeless Western style. A great pair of Western boots will elevate a casual look or add a refined flair that'll draw both eyes and compliments. Tecovas boots are always made from premium bovine and exotic leathers, and with occasional resoling, they will last a lifetime. The best way to shop for boots is at your local Tecovas store, where you'll be greeted by the smell of fresh leather and a friendly smile. Come on in, grab a cold one, get fitted by a pro, and shop the latest styles. We also offer custom branding and leather stamping if you want to personalize your boots or fine leather goods. As spring makes its way into summer, stay cool in a short sleeve, moisture-wicking pearl snap, or make your own shade with one of their classic straw hats, new in both men's and women's styles. And if you're planning to hit the road, Tecovas' ever-growing lineup of rugged and full-grain leather bags will get you where you're headed in style and are built to last decades. Visit tecovas.com, that's TECOVAS.com, and don't go gently, y'all.
Whether you're just looking to stay warm during a hunt or need maximum concealment, the clothing you wear can make or break a hunt. At MidwayUSA.com, we understand hunting clothing has come a long way, with more meticulously crafted camo patterns, advanced scent control technologies, and weatherproof options to withstand the elements. Hunters have to wait until their favorite season, but shouldn't wait on gear, which is why Midway USA offers super fast shipping. When you're ready for your next system, log on to MidwayUSA.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast, brought to you by Huntworth. Huntworth gear for all types of weather, all types of terrain, all types of budgets. It's clothing that just works. Check out their Father's Day sale they have going on right now. It's, I believe, 25% off, and it's getting automatically updated in your cart, so there's no code or anything that you need to put in. Just go in, so you can start poking around on there and start to look at, you know, what it costs. Like, you don't have to put in a code and nothing like that. Just add it to the cart and you'll get the discount. And this podcast, this hunt, I got to use some of their gear in all types of weather, all types of terrain. The weather out there was ridiculous. You know, when we first started elk hunting, they said plan for 20 to 90, and I don't think it hit 90 out there, but we woke up to snow. It was, I don't know, I would guess 20 to 30 mile an hour winds. Montana is a windy place, but the gear held up. The rain jacket was one of the staples in my kit. Puffy, merino, and that Huntworth rain jacket. So definitely was worth the wait carrying it. So something to check out over there, 25% off, but definitely got some use. Got to try some gear on this hunt. You know, thanks again to Tom and Sarah for opening up their home, their driveway, their everything to us. Stan, Wyatt, Keegan, Brian, just an amazing hunt. the Patreon community that we have built, that we continue to build, is something that makes it really easy to do this on, no sleep, trying to make this podcast happen for you guys. As much as it's for me, it's beneficial, and I like doing it. It makes it worth it. So really appreciate the time in camp. Getting to hang out with you guys. Stan, awesome. Really enjoyed it. Headed up now to the Total Archery Challenge this weekend. We're going to be doing our cookout on Saturday. So if you're going to be up there, shoot me a message on Instagram or whatever. I'll tell you where we're going to be at, and look forward to seeing everybody. It's one of the best times of the year for us to get together and see each other outside of these hunts and hunting seasons. Like I say, really, really looking forward to that. And, Latitude's going to be up there. Generations to Hunt podcast is going to be up there. Genesis 3D is going to be up there. It's just a great place to be. Stealth e-bikes is going to be up there with some of their new stuff. So that's going to be pretty awesome to check out. And, we can go on and on about the partners and everything. Spartan Forge, we thoroughly broke down these areas with Spartan Forge, and we got to talk to one of the developers on things, not necessarily things that are coming out, but things that they're working on and projects and the things that are features. And while we were out there, a new version dropped with some really cool features. So if you're like me and you don't generally update your apps, go ahead and update that Spartan Forge if you have it. There's some pretty intuitive things out there and the mapping section. So definitely check that out. But we got to thank all of our sponsors, our partners, Big Shot Targets, Lucky Buck, all of them, and we're in June, so at the end of this month we'll have the quarterly giveaway for from all the companies, from Huntworth, Latitude, Spartan Forge, Big Shot Targets, Lucky Buck, Kanadi, Zinger. I mean, those guys, we've got our arrows all set up for tack. I think Matt's got his arrows, and he's going to be shooting for the truck. And, if you get one in with a Zinger, you get a free set of Zingers. And then you'll be in the drawing, as long as you post a picture with it. And if you get in with a Kanadi, same deal. And then if you end up winning the truck, it's going to be $500 or $1,000 for you that they're offering. So give those Zingers a try. A lot of people are finally coming around on them, but they're an amazing piece of gear. So the guys over there are great as well. So anyways, I hope to see you up at the Total Archery Challenge. And this podcast is fun. We were hunted hard for a week, and then hunted really hard for a day, and ended up shooting a bear. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I know you're going to love this episode. As always, thank you for listening. All right, everybody, Adam back with another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast, and we're talking gun hunting today. We're talking our Patreon West bear hunt, and we were out in the mountains of Wyoming because there's no bear or elk in Montana. So all this is happening in Wyoming to save some of these spots. So just keep that in mind with Mr. Tom Taylor, the proclaimed man's man from everyone who's met him. So how are you doing tonight, Tom?
You're not going to give that a rest anytime soon, are you?
No, absolutely not.
I'm doing good. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm tired, man. I am whooped. I actually had to work today, and I didn't like that. And then
do you ever?
Well, I mean, sometimes I don't mind. I understand it's a necessary evil. But coming back from hunting with the time change and then the days out there being so long and then kind of how the hours that we were operating, man, I need some sleep. So,
Yeah. Yep.
but,
Yeah, I was a little tuckered out today. I had a long day at work too, and I got home and I'm like, oh, okay.
yeah.
I'm gonna go to bed early tonight.
So this whole, Patreon spring bear hunt kind of was your idea. We did our first Patreon deer hunt, and you kind of messaged me on the side, and I don't know if you were talking with some other people or whatever, but you're like, since I'm out west now, I would like to, offer it up if it's something that you're interested in. So tell me about that thought process where, you're going to go ahead and just, essentially do the same thing that I did, except for I had at least the luxury of knowing that a lot of the spots in the area, and I think it was a little bit easier for a deer hunt than a mountain hunt.
Yeah. Probably didn't think that whole thing through real well, but I just kind of pulled myself, after the first year, you did your Patreon hunt, and I had been to I'd been invited to a couple camps. I just didn't have the time. And then I went up to your camp and I'm like, man, we don't do this, just as hunters in general. We don't do that enough anymore. I grew up with rabbit camp and deer camp, not so much deer camp. A lot of it was just rabbit camp all winter long. And it's just something that's, it felt like it was dying out in my life. I feel like it was dying out for a lot of other guys. And that camp atmosphere is, it's just so important. It's not necessarily where you go to kill the biggest buck or where you go to, it's just a weekend out of the year, a week out of the year that you get to go kind of shoot the shit, let your hair down, and kind of hit the reset button. And that's what your camp up there was for me. I was like, okay, that was fun. We need to do this more. So, I kind of had it in my mind when I moved out here. I'm like, I'm going to try to keep that available for guys if they want to come out here and have a camp, or even if I wasn't moving out here, I still had it in my mind that I was like, it's something that needs to be done more. And there was some talk in your Patreon group after I moved out here. Guys were joking, and then it turned into more jokes, and then it was a handful of guys that are like, do we see a West, like a Bowhunter Chronicle West camp in our PC type thing? No, we got a guy out there, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. So I reached out to you, and I'm like, hey, do you want to do this? You want to be a part of this? I'm gonna, regardless of whether or not you were going to be a part of it, I was going to try to put a camp together. But obviously, you have you've built a extremely tight knit group of Patreon guys that, it was very easy for me to, once I got kind of the go ahead from you, to plug into that group and go, okay, this is happening. So.
Yeah, I think that was really fortunate for, for what we're doing in the community that we have. That even, it was like, for example, like Stan, like you've known Stan for, probably close to 4 or 5 years now, but you've never met in person,
Right. Yep.
That type of thing. And, the other guys, Keegan's kind of newer to the group, but the other guys had been at the other camp. So that was, 3 years ago now. So,
Mm-hmm.
You've got these guys that it's not just random dude one, and, you've been coordinating, conversating, working through all the gear, doing all this stuff. And then to like finally meet him in person was like really, really, a special part of that as well. But then, then to be like, okay, no, except for me, I think none of the guys had ever been to I guess Stan kind of hunts in the mountains a little bit. But
Yep.
that was one of the things too. I think that you wanted this hunt because a bear tag, relatively speaking, isn't that expensive. And it's a hunt that can be done any number of ways, regardless of kind of gear and like physical ability or whatever. So,
Right.
so in your mind, like once you got this ball rolling, how did you see it playing out? Like, before anybody got out there, like what your intentions or like how you thought it would go.
Well, I had a very open mind when it came to that because, I knew that for guys coming out here that had never hunted in the West and mountain terrain and just, being a different state altogether, but it is very different, with like all the fine intricacies of like, where can I go? What road can I drive up? Is this ATV or is this truck drive? All those little things. I knew it was going to be, it's, for a guy that's never hunted out West like that, it's a big hurdle. So I knew that was kind of going to be a thing. And if some guys showed up that had hunted out West before, I knew it was going to be easier for them to navigate around. And I kind of figured it was going to be a team situation, or a group situation where guys go out, not necessarily solo, but, 2-3 guys to a truck kind of thing. And just figure it out, and that, like you said before, bear tag, what it boils down to really is a bear tag's a lot easier of a tag to chew on than an elk tag in Montana, or Wyoming, I meant, sorry. So it's just more of a good, it's an easier, foot in the door for a Western style hunt for a guy that might be in the Midwest or out east or whatever to kind of, dip his toe into the waters and go, okay, I can do this, and I don't need this gear, or I need this gear, and that kind of stuff. So,
But so like in your mind, going into it, because one of the things that we had to quote unquote deal with, and it definitely came into play, I think, was, planning this hunt a year ahead of time, trying to figure out the dates, the weather. Oh my God, the weather. And then, what the bears were going to be doing, etc. And, to your credit, you didn't really know anything about bear hunting either. So it was like,
no, not at all.
It wasn't like, hey, come out here. I got all these bear spots and I know all about bear hunting and this is what you got to look for. It was a very level playing field.
Yeah. I warned the guys multiple times ahead of time. I'm like, if you think this is going to be come out here, I'm going to show you all the good spots. You're going to be let down. I'm like, we're all going to learn together here because, I'm a new bear hunter too. So it's not like, I can kind of go off of like where I've elk hunted and where I've hiked around and been around and what kind of sign and what kind of terrain I've seen them in before. I've seen sign in before, but I mean, usually that's fall time activity. And I never really was like, because bear hunting to me, when I moved out here, all it really was to me was like, oh, to just replace my turkey hunting because we don't have any turkeys around here. And turkey hunting back in Michigan was always just, let's go out and have some fun. If it happens, it happens. It doesn't. You just never really took it too seriously. And that's kind of how I took bear hunting here. It was just kind of like a big turkey hunt for me. And you can get it done that way. I mean, you guys saw you can bump into one right off the side of the road. It can happen that way, but I kind of had in mind like I've seen enough bear sign around that if we put enough eyeballs on good country we're gonna at least spot a few bears, and we're gonna at least get some stalks in. And yeah, the that didn't play out like we wanted it to. So,
And what do you think played into that? Like, why do you think that
so
that didn't
leading
play
up
well?
to it, well, I don't, like I said, I'm not an expert at this, so I don't know. I can't like, I'll just give you my BS response to that. But, leading into it, the weather was like I worried about the weather a lot because I kind of knew that like bears are pretty finicky with the weather, and the timing here where we're at is a big deal because, if we get a late spring, um, you know, you everything could be covered in snow again. The bears could be shoved down low on the edge of private, and it could make it, way more difficult than it's already going to be. So, and also you're hunting an animal that doesn't have the same population density as like deer and elk do. So you've got those two factors ahead of you, or in front of you already. So I was very concerned about the weather, the weather and the timing of the whole thing. So I went back and forth quite a bit. Guys are like, "When's this happening? When's this happening?" I'm like, "I got to nail a date down so these guys can, start planning this." And I didn't want to be too late. I wanted to be kind of in that perfect time frame. And some of these zones too, they start to shut down a little early if the female quota gets hit. So that was an issue. I didn't want to like all of a sudden, a couple of the couple of the units around us start to shut down because female quotas get hit, and it's like, oh crap, now we're driving 3 hours, instead of an hour and a half or something. So that was a concern. So I tried to, you know, I really thought hard and long about the dates, and it did pimp a couple guys from being able to come out. Um, but it just it was like that fine line.
Are you overwhelmed by the hundreds of food plot mixes out there? Well, you are not alone. And Vitalize Seed has developed a program that takes the guesswork out of food plotting. Vitalize makes it simple with their two core mixes, Nitro Boost and Carbon Load. Nitro Boost is their spring-summer food plot mix, and Carbon Load is for planting in the fall, each having a diverse mix of over a dozen seed types that are highly attractive to whitetail. Food plotting made simple. Each mix provides necessary nutrients to the soil, making for better plots each season. This also saves you money by needing less Roundup and fertilizer every year. The 1-2 system simplifies your food plots just how nature intended. And for the more advanced habitat managers, Vitalize also offers a variety of natural amendments with products like their seed feed that offer seeds immediately available minerals ready as soon as they germinate. Make biology work for you. Order now at vitalizeseed.com.
I was playing with there, and it wasn't easy.
So in your head, like, though, when you're planning this all up and like leading into it, like, how did you think it would go? Meaning, like, what did you think would be like a success? Like, what would make the camp a success? Because I know going into like the Patreon hunt, I was like the first one, I was like, man, I don't know if these guys, what they expect out of me. I don't know what what the dynamic is going to be with these people in camp, what the attitudes are going to be, all of that sort of stuff. So that I know what you're like feeling there, but like,
right,
for you, like before anybody showed up, like before the first guy showed up, what did you think what would make it a success?
Yeah, so without knowing any of the guys, which I kind of did know some of the guys' personalities, but without really knowing any of the guys' personalities, it was definitely, I was like, man, if we could just see some bears, I'll take that as a success, because at least these guys feel they have a chance, like they have a fighting chance at getting on something. And and I was pretty sure that these guys were just going to be happy with whatever, just tromping around the mountains and getting to see cool stuff. But I'm like, man, if we could just see bears, and that'll keep them occupied, from feeling like this sucks really bad, I'm never doing this again. But yeah, the weather didn't help us with that. I think the weather was a big play in that. Um, we just got slammed with like some nasty winds, cold nights, some cold days, on and off rain. It just, you know,
Yeah, we
is
woke
what
up
the
the
weather
one
does
morning, there
out
was
here.
snow. And it's like, this is
Yeah.
supposed to be like leading up to June. This is after Memorial Day. There should be no snow. There should be nothing. And then when I left, I was the last one to leave. Got up at 3:30 in the morning, and it's like dead
50 degrees
calm,
out.
55 degrees, and I'm like, what the hell? Like
Yeah.
this is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. In hindsight, I think I mentioned it to you too. I'm like, man, we probably could have pushed this back another week and done all right. Because,
Yeah, but I think it wasn't it one of the units though that we were hunting closed.
no, no. So that's what I was going to say is like in hindsight, the bear eggs don't come out. Um, they don't come out until, late winter. And I had to plan this before then, and I wasn't sure which units were going to have that quota. I hadn't done, I haven't been here long enough to know that, and I hadn't done enough research to like exactly know which ones could possibly. And I don't know as if, I think they change from year to year. Some of them stay the same. But obviously wildlife managers they've got to look at those things every year. So I was a little nervous about that. So I think this year I might dig into that a little bit more if it's something we plan on doing next year, or next time we do this, at least, whatever. Um, I'll be better informed on which units usually never shut down because the population, is, and we'll just go to those units, and that way we don't have that way we can push this back a week and have some better weather. The other issue with that is you start to get into the rut, or you are into the rut at that point, and I don't know how that affects things. So that would be a whole different hiccup pushing it back another week. We might end up with not the weather to deal with, but with bears that are just moving and not staying put. But at least maybe we could glass more of them up.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, in reality, you could go out and you could still be hunting the rut, except for, you sent everybody home and went and killed a bear. But we'll get into that in a minute.
Right. Yeah.
So, I think the amount of elk and mule deer and moose that we saw kind of, that kept me interested. And even just, for me, having elk hunted a handful of times in the past and, never just walking up on elk or, having elk that kind of like wouldn't leave, they're just kind of staring at you.
Right.
That was just a super cool experience, making you think like, oh, elk hunting should be so easy out here,
Yeah.
and we had many.
I think I even said to you, I was like, don't get the wrong impression. This is not how I act on season.
Right. So,
And honestly, we didn't even see, these guys. There was really only, there was really only a few instances where we were seeing game, and I took these guys, just elk and deer in general. I've been to some of these spots quite a bit, or some of those areas, and it's like nothing to just pull your binos up and look, there's 100 elk, or here's a group of 30 here and 20 over here, and like, you're just seeing them all over the place. And I think the weather, that was another weird thing that was going on. I was like, there were days where we went without seeing an animal, or like one moose off the side of the road. Like we glassed a ton of prime country, and we weren't picking up any game, which was really weird. I think some of that was because one of the units in particular we were in, there were some hound hunters in there that we didn't know about until the end of the day, and then it was like, oh, that makes sense. They've been running around in here. They've in the same basin we're in. It certainly doesn't help your odds for seeing things. And then there's an active logging operation in there, and I didn't know about, so I don't know if that machinery traffic in there all week. I gotta imagine that affects their movement a little bit, pushes them away. So there's some places we went to where it just floored us. We weren't seeing very much game, and then we go to another place and it was like elk extravaganza, and you're like, okay, there's like some of the best grass we've seen over there. There's multiple groups of elk over there. What the hell? Why aren't we seeing a bear over there? So
Yeah, that was, I mean, and for people who are listening and they're like, okay, what's going on? Like, we were at these vantage points where you could see like literally for miles. Like,
yeah,
the amount of country that we were able to glass, and it wasn't like we were just randomly looking at places. We were looking at south facing slopes with open timber. We were looking for everything that they talk about, like that, Mark Livesay and Zach talked about on the podcast that we did, everything that you would want, we were looking at. And the amount of times the amount of times that we walked in somewhere and we're like, I can't believe that there isn't bear sign here. Like,
right.
It was just wild.
Yeah, it was it floored me. And I these guys heard me say it hundreds of times. I'm like, I cannot believe the lack of sign in here or the lack of bear sightings. It was just, we were struggling really hard, and we weren't just like, we were looking at prime country. In some of the places we were going, it's just, they had a ton of bear sign in, and it was prime country, and still weren't picking them up. And yeah, it was, and in some of those cases, it was a deal where we just, somebody got there before us and killed a bear like an hour before we got there. So that messed the things up. It was just, so we were close. We knew we were in the right areas. But yeah, we're just coming up dry. We're just missing it by a couple hours, or, whatever. It just, 8 minutes.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So that 8 minute thing, I was with Wyatt and Keegan, and we had driven around, and Keegan actually had shot a coyote earlier in the day, and we wanted to get up to one more spot just to glass, and we're sitting there glassing, and the only reason I knew that it was like 8 minutes left is because Keegan told Wyatt, he's like, Wyatt wanted to go check something on the other side of the ridge, and I'm like, and he's like, well, there's 12 minutes left, so you better hurry and get up there if we're going to do anything. And we're sitting there in the truck and glassing over all this country. And what we were doing was trying to figure out, like, locate a bear for the next day, on another ridge side, or get some sort of plan. And
fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations, and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
Pursuing wild game in wild places. Tune in to Hunt Stand Presents Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Waypoint TV, the destination for outdoor entertainment.
I told Tom many times throughout this thing, it's like, I just don't think we were good at glassing. Because we looked at so much, it's like you couldn't see anything. So, we're looking far across the ridges, and then, you'd see something and put your binoculars down and then pull them back up and see if it moved, or, you'd watch. Because a lot of times, unless you were Tom, or like some of these guys had binoculars on tripods and stuff like that. Tom has the image stabilization, binos, the 6. But, you're looking at, just your breathing makes it look like everything's moving. So you have to like double check. So I look between these two pine trees on the same ridge system that we're on, like 300 yards in front of us. And I'm like, man, that looks like a bear. And I put my binos down, picked them back up, and it turned its head and took a step. And I was like, oh, that's definitely a bear. But now we're 4 minutes into the 12 minutes before illegals up. So I'm like, grab your gun. It was like legitimately comical. Like, I wish we would have had some video of that, because it was
Everybody panic.
it was crazy. And we went running over there, and of course,
Yeah, how far was it when you because you were sitting in the truck at that time?
yeah, it was probably like 300
guys were-
yards. I mean, like, we could have, it's Montana or Wyoming, whatever. Those western states, they all blend together.
Yeah, they're all the same.
But you can, you just, what do you say? You just have to have 2 feet out of the vehicle, and you can't be shooting over the vehicle. So,
Right.
but the bear had like turned and was moving down the ridge, and it was like out of our sight. It wasn't going to come back up over. It was like on the edge. And so we panicked, and it was a mess, and we never saw the bear again. But it was at least exciting, because Keegan, he even said he thought I was messing with him. It was like, but then when he saw like the panicked response in my face where I got out, and I'm like, hey, we gotta go. And it might have been better, in hindsight, we could have just moved higher to kind of get a better vantage point to try and see him, instead of like try to get over to kind of like closer to where it was. But as you know, when you see a bear, things kind of go out the window.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was exciting. And then, so Stan had spotted a bear on one of the earlier hunts, and
Yeah.
was going to go back in there. And in the meantime, somebody slipped in and killed a very similar looking bear on the same ridge.
Yeah.
So,
I will say, so like to that scenario, these guys Brian, I mean, all the guys were, but Brian and Wyatt in particular, it's like, we're hunting the front country here. We're not intending on going way back in anywhere. And we're trying to just like figure out a spot, like, okay, is it worth, hiking in there a couple miles and trying to put game plans together. So a lot of the stuff we're glassing from road systems. It's, anyways, we get parked, and even Keegan was doing this. I don't think Keegan was running the tripod, but these guys, you kind of mentioned like, we're just not good at, finding bears. For being first time glassing guys, they blew me out of the water on how they pick a bear. I'm not like the glassing guy. I never have been. I probably never will be. I'm kind of like, I've always just been pretty fast and loose. I'll pan it pretty quick, and it's like nothing there, moving on. And then I'll pan it again. And it's like, oh, yep, there's something there. I guess I probably should take a better look, These guys, they just out of the truck, bam, tripods down, and just meticulously. You could watch. I'd watch these guys, and they're like meticulously. Okay, they're gonna work this ridge, work it back down, then next ridge, and they're going through this stuff with a fine-tooth comb. And obviously none of us have like glassed for bears, so I'm sure there's some things we were missing there, but they were doing a good job. And to Stan's credit, like the spot we parked and sat down was some of the best country we were looking at the whole trip. And we knew there was bears in there because the guy rolled in there an hour and a half before us, picked up his binos. Oh, bear, went over there and shot it. And he told us, he was like, dude, there's so much, you're like tripping over the bear crap in the bottom of the drainages he went through. He said there's so many bears in here, it's got to be, because the drainages he was walking up and down over there, he said it's just absolutely loaded with bear crap everywhere. So that was good. We're like in the right area. And he mentioned to us when we talked to him, he's like, man, if I was you guys, I'd be sitting here as much as you can, because he's like, there's just so much sign. But Stan, we all sit down and we're locked in on all this country, and we're moving around a bunch, picking up here and down, just a few 100 yards here and there, just trying to get different angles, look at the pockets a little bit differently. And just finally laying down in the shade somewhere in there or something. And Stan, he takes off walking down the road, and he's just, methodically, he'd walk for 100 yards or so and just pick something apart really good, and he'd walk and he was gone for a good bit. And now, to his credit, he worked hard to glass that bear up. Like, he was picking that stuff apart. He was picking that stuff apart really well. And he gets about a mile or so from the truck, mile and a half, whatever it was. And it gets one of his binos, and it was the same thing. He put his binos on. It was a real blonde bear. And he's like, what the heck is that type thing, and then it turned just right, and he watched it walk a little bit, and then it went right back behind the trees where he couldn't see it. And he's like, oh, that's a bear for sure, And it was probably just under a mile away when he found it, but it was on the same range system we were. And he kind of didn't understand. Like, I told these guys ahead of time, I'm like, hey, it'd be a good idea to kind of lay out some ground rules if you guys are going to hunt in a group. Who's shooting, who's, what's, try to figure that out ahead of time, so it's not like what me and you had, where it was like, in the heat of the moment, where it's like, who's doing this, type thing. So I told him, I said, try to lay it out ahead of time. And that way there's no confusion. Nobody feels like, they had something taken from them. Everybody's on the same level. And it'd be good to, so they kind of came up with a system. Well, I'd mentioned to them, I'm like, one tried and true system is, whoever spots it, it's theirs. And if they want to refuse it, then you guys need to figure out how you're going to figure out who's on deck for that day. If you want to rotate who's on deck, day by day, whatever. So Brian was on deck that day, and Stan had mentioned things like, he goes, hey, Brian, I'm going to get a snack quick, and I'm going to go find you a bear, he said. Stan was thinking Brian was shooter that day, and everybody else was like, whoever sees the bear is shooter. So Stan goes all the way up there, spots the bear, and he comes sprinting back down the road, a mile and a half, gets to the truck, and you can just see the panic in his face. He's like, what's going on? He's just like dying out of breath, sweating to death. And he's like, I'm like, okay, we're free to go. Where's he at? What, he's like, I don't know. He disappeared real quick. And I'm like, okay, well, instead of trying to like just go in there and bump him, let's go back exactly where we were, where you were, so we can all get eyes on it, exactly where he was. Maybe we'll get eyes on him again. And then we'll try to get a little bit closer, cut some country down, and try to locate him again. I don't, like, in my mind, I was thinking just going in there blind, as a recipe for bumping that bear and never seeing him again. So I'm like, let's just go back to where you saw him. Let's see if we get eyes on him again, or at least figure out how we're going to move in and get a little closer look at what you're looking at. So that's what we did. We went up there, and we made a game plan. And Stan's like, he goes, Brian, get going, type thing. And it was like, Brian, we're all looking at him like, Stan, you spotted the bear. That's your bear. And he's like, oh, really? Like, yeah, man, let's go. Get your gun. He's like, okay, yeah. So he gets all the stuff. So we make a game plan to get over there. Left a couple guys back where Stan saw the bear. And so they could, flag us if they saw something going on, that we could turn around and look at him and at least get a sense of, if they saw the bear, what he was doing, where he was going, what was happening. And we were just going to cut the country in half, a little better than half, get a little closer to him, see if we could just one ridge over and try to put eyes on where Stan thought he was going down into. So we did that, and, animals do what animals do in the wild. He just put the slip on us. We just never could get him glassed back up. And then Stan had made plans to go back over there, because now he's got he's got this bear, and he knows it's in there, and he can't leave it alone. and we had the conundrum of the distance from camp it was and how long the days were. It made it difficult for us to stay out there super late. We had had a conversation like, hey, we need to be back here first thing in the morning. But if we stay until last light, we're only going to get a couple hours sleep. We think maybe it would be better if we just get an earlier night, get back here first thing in the morning. And it kind of didn't work out super well. And Stan poked around in that area a little bit more. He kind of split off on his own and just started. Well, he went back there the next day with Wyatt and Keegan. And in the meantime, somebody else got in between them in that same glassing point and killed another one. And we heard a couple other shots over there. So it was, there were bears being killed in that area. And, so I don't remember exactly how it happened, but somehow in the mix of things, somebody also saw that bear and got in there and killed it. And so Stan's like, he goes, I feel like that bear was smaller than the one that I saw. I'm not real sure, it's hard to tell size. And he's like, but it was pretty much the same as that color. It was another blonde bear. So Stan kind of felt like, he's like, crap, somebody got in here in between. It was just like a timing issue,
Yeah, and that was one of the things I was going to ask is like, what would you do differently for the next one? Like, what did you learn? What would you change?
Yeah. So knowing what I know now, we've got that area up there that appears to hold a lot of bears in it, and that's the area we went back up into, and I shot my bear, but. So obviously there's the bear density in that specific area we were in is pretty good. And the country, it looks like it too, and the sign was telling us that, and the amount of bears we're seeing get killed in there kind of is. So, obviously if I do this again, we're going to be up there in that area, at least base camped, right there in that area. So if guys want to go out and spike camp, they can. If guys want to hunt from the road system up there and short little hikes in and out, they can. Knowing now what I know, being base camped at the house here, even though the mountains are right here behind the house, it's a density thing you're up against. And just like everything you hunt, you're trying to put every bit of odds in your favor you can. So it just makes sense to be up in an area that's got a little bit higher density and be closer to that, so we're not running ragged late nights, early mornings, and just dragging ass every day trying to drive up to a good area,
Yeah. So you mentioned, a couple times that you've got a bear. So let's get into this bear that you shot out from under me. I went all the way out there and,
Yeah.
And then basically I had to guide you into your bear, but whatever.
Yeah. Well, you changed your story because I told you, because you were giving me shit about me being the worst bear guy ever because I shot the bear most of you. And then I made the mistake of telling you I was going to give you my response was going to be, well, somebody had to do one. Somebody had to kill one. So I see, you're a smart enough guy. You changed your story, so that doesn't work anymore. I can't give you shit. Yeah, so we pretty much had 2 days, just me and you, because your flight wasn't going to leave until Tuesday, right?
Yeah. Monday.
Yeah. We came back to camp, saw Brian off, and then me and you, this whole time, this is a whole nother thing that's been going on that we haven't even talked about. Like, my well takes a crap. I got the whole time bear camp's going on, which we're not in camp during the day, so it wasn't an issue. Those guys weren't working while we were here at camp making a bunch of noise, but I got a new well getting drilled. I got, I got like problems of my own going on that are kind of like sidetracking me a little bit. So the first day me and you had to hunt just together, I think we decided We were going to sleep in. We were going to see Brian off that morning. I got sidetracked with the well guys, I think, quite a bit there. And then we didn't make it out until later that afternoon, right?
Yeah,
Was that the same day?
Yeah,
Was that the same day we killed?
Yeah, because
Okay, yep,
you're like I think we'll see Brian off, and then I think we should wait around until we can get a shower. Like, I need a shower.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, dude, it just happened a few days ago, and it's all blur. So yeah, I'm like, I haven't showered in 5 days or 6 days or whatever it was. I'm like, I need a shower. I smell like a goat. And you're like, yeah, a shower would be nice, but I guess I'm just fine with being dirtier than you. And I'm like, okay, well, and the other thing too is like, I was really curious about how this new well was going to perform, and it didn't perform great. You know, still kick out dirty waters. Well, full another topic. So yeah, we decided we're going to go back up to the area, where, you know, we had seen bears, ton of bear sign, lots of good country. We're going to take the tent with us in case we want to stay up there overnight, so we can get right up early and we don't have that long drive home and then back in the morning. So we loaded up the wall tent. I got a smaller wall tent. It only takes like 15 minutes to set up. It's not like a giant, outfitter wall tent.
And
we'll
just
take that up there.
I would like to interject here real quick and say that the plan we came up with after doing what we did, if we would have executed our first plan, we would still be on the mountain. Like it.
Yeah, not good.
We would have died there.
Yeah. So, and like nothing was working. And so I go back to like, what I always go back to, where it's like, if this isn't work, let's just like, I just gotta suffer. I gotta at least suffer, because I feel like the mountains just are not gonna reward me unless I suffer a little bit. And I've always kind of had that mentality of like, the success that I have is directly related to the amount of, effort and suffer I put into it. So I'm like, I'm just going back to the basics here. We're just going to go and suffer. So we're going to hike in someplace. It's going to suck really bad, and a bear is going to show up. And we're going to take the tent. We can stay. We can go do it again the next day. So in retrospect, I'm kind of okay for two reasons. One reason it worked out. We killed one. The other reason is the hill we went up was less steep than the hill I had planned on going to. So there's two reasons why I'm okay that river that we had to cross, that I said, I got to cross it once before. We should be able to get across it. We'll just take some Crocs up there and we'll just, keep our boots dry and we'll just get across it real quick. It was high and it was fast. And you kind of looked at me like, are we really going to do this? And I'm like, I don't think that's a real good idea. I really wanted to, and I'm glad, I'm glad we didn't, obviously, now. But the hill we wanted to go up to was like, what was it, like 2,500 foot climb and like 1.5 miles. It was straight up, and there was actually no trail. Like it showed a trail on the map, a foot trail on the map, but after looking at it, we couldn't see the foot trail at all. And it was quite obvious that people had quit using that trail because it sucked so bad. So, or one guy used it once in like 1970 and nobody's ever used it again back when they built stronger men than us. So, we looked up and I'm like, I don't really know if I want to cross that river and then have to do that too. But if we can get across this river, we will. And so we checked that out. We drove down the road, checked a few spots in the river, trying to figure out, like, can we get across this river? No, it's not going to happen. So we're sitting on the tailgate of the truck and we're looking at maps, and I'm looking up at the hill across the road, that, an acquaintance here sent me a picture of a bear track 2 years ago. So I thought, well, that's a good area. And obviously there are bears in there because there was a picture of a track in there once 2 years ago. So I'm like, I kept looking at you, and it was getting to be that moment where it was like, do or die, like we either gotta get off the pot here, like, both of our plans have not, they're not working out. We got to figure something out. And I'm like, what do you want to do? And of course, you just the whole time, you're like, I don't care, whatever. And I'm like, screw it. We're going up there.
Well, I said, we got to do something. And you're like, all right, we're going.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I'm like, screw it. We're going up there. So it was not like the easiest hiking trail. It was a good trail, thank goodness, because it made that steep terrain easier. But it was a grind. I mean, it was a grind getting up there. There's no doubt about that.
Well, yeah. So here's the thing, like, you live out there now, and you had even messed with those other guys by like running down a hill so that your strides looked like they were like 10 yards long. Yeah. And so here we are. You're, used to at least being in the mountains and hiking these hills, like whether you are out of shape or whatever, however you feel, you operate in that environment regularly now.
Yeah.
And so like me, before I was coming out there, I was just getting on the treadmill and doing like essentially 1,000-foot climb over 2 miles with a pack on my back on the treadmill, just watching TV, doing it, pretty regularly. But then when we got out there, and even we were doing like little hikes and stuff, we hiked in, maybe a mile and back, right. and with, a couple 100 feet of elevation. And I was like, whew, air's thinner out here. My lungs are, yeah. It wasn't my legs, it was my lungs. And then, so we start up this trail, and like, so for the people who are listening, and I got a video of the bear and all that stuff, but like when we were sitting at the trail, you're looking like way up there, and you can just see it like zigzagging across the face of this. And I was like, okay, well, that's going to suck. And so I was like, even made some polos. I was like, this is going to suck. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to kind of gauge off of how Tom's doing, and, we just kept going, and I was just watching my watch, looking at my heart rate. And finally, I don't know, we went like a half a mile or something by my watch. It wasn't quite a half a mile. But my heart rate was like 180 something. And I'm like, hey, Tom, I got to stop. I'm like, hey, and I was like, God, he's going to run me to death,
Well, and to be honest with you, just like I screwed with those guys a little bit, I was taking like Bigfoot strides, back to the snow. So, because I knew darn well they were going to come back through that snow that we'd hike through, and they were going to look at the strides I took, and they were going to be like, what the fuck, and so I was messing with them. And Keegan mentioned when he got back to the truck, he's like, dude, what were you doing? Long jumping or running or something? I forget what he said, but he's like, your strides are like 10 foot long. We had a good chuckle about that. So yeah, I was definitely, I'm like, okay, we're gonna mess with, I'm gonna get Adam to tap, I'm gonna mess with him a little bit, and I gotta make you feel, I gotta check your ego a little bit, and what inadvertently happened was you were checking mine, you just didn't know it, because I was going, and I was like, son of a bitch, he's not gonna stop. I'm like, I'm just gonna keep going until he stops. And I'm like, he's not gonna tell me to stop. Like, he is in way better shape than I am. And then pretty soon I feel a tap on my backpack, and you're like, okay. You could tell you did not want to stop me. You were like, dude, he's like, I'm gonna die out here, you gotta hold on a second. I was like, and I think after I looked at it, I was like, thank God. I was ready for a break too.
You want to succeed, you want to fish, you want to be one of the greatest.
Tune in to West Marine's Life on the Water, presented by Costa Custom Boats, every Saturday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV.
Every once in a while, it's fun to go like just full-blown redneck on these fish. This is like high-tech cane pole fishing right here.
From the white sandy beaches to the crystal blue waters, enjoy the best fishing Panama City Beach has to offer during Chasing the Sun. Sundays at 9:30 a.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV, the destination for outdoor entertainment.
Yeah, and then we slowed the pace up a little bit after that.
Yeah. Then we were like, okay, all right. We know.
All right, I'm done messing with Adam. We're just gonna hike at a normal pace here.
But it was, that was the thing, is like it really was like, I don't want to say like test your metal, but it was like knowing like where the limit was, and we were like right in the same kind of like ballpark where
yeah,
like,
we were.
If he's feeling it, if I'm feeling it, he's probably feeling it. So, you know.
Yeah. And I'll say, man, you really did hang in there really good, and I'm not like you. It sounds like these guys did more than I mean, I didn't do anything to get, I periodically go to the gym and lift with my son because that's like his jam and he loves doing it. And I like to be there with him and I like to lift, but Sarah kind of kept making she's like, are you going to do any cardio? And I'm like, no, I hate cardio. I'm not doing cardio,
Well, but I think
these guys are good. She goes, these guys are going to make you look foolish out there. And I'm like, well, if it happens, it happens. I don't give a crap.
But I think the last thing that you wanted was to get out there and then, even like spot an animal and not be able to get to it because you weren't,
Yeah, your lungs or your legs fail you, Yeah. Yeah, these guys, like Brian dropped a ton of weight coming out here. He was looking good. And I don't know if it was for coming out here or if he just, after retirement, he's just trying to live a better life kind of thing is what it sounds like. And those other guys, yeah, they're doing exactly what they should have been doing. And I was not. But like I said, I had the advantage of knowing the mountains, knowing the terrain, and also living at this elevation for a couple of years now. That's a way bigger advantage than people realize.
Yeah. So we get to hiking up there, and we got to the spot where we had set out to get. And I think when both of us, I mean, at least like when I sat down there, like what we were looking at, the angle that we were at, like we couldn't really see what we were looking at looked good, but it just wasn't as vast. Like we were looking at like a very small pie. And if we turned around, like when we went around to the other side of the mountain, we could see 100,000 acres. I don't know. I mean,
oh yeah. I mean, I don't even know how to comprehend how much and actually kind of effectively, because the terrain we were in was so steep that, like we'd gone a mile up the mountain, but you're still only like 2 miles from the other side. It's not like you got a mile further. You just went a mile up,
Yeah.
So you may have gotten like a quarter mile further.
Yeah.
So so we get to the spot and I kind of like knew after getting up there and looking at the map, I'm like, man, it just would be nice if we could just see the head of this drainage, and see up there on the top, it dips down a little bit. Like all the sign we've been seeing has been down in these drainages. And this one, if we can just see the top end of it where it meets the timber, hopefully we can catch one, come out in it. And it was going to be shooting distance. It was so tight and steep in there. I was like, if one pops out anywhere in this drainage, like we're getting a shot. But, we sat there for a little bit. It rained on us a little bit. We grabbed some snacks, refueled a little. And then I think I just looked at you and I'm like, I don't love it, type thing. And you kind of mentioned, you're like, oh, this trail keeps going up, this trail keeps going, And I'm like, I know, but I want to see the head of this drainage. And then after sitting there for a little bit, I'm like, I don't know, this doesn't feel right. It's just like, after hunting whitetail for, a long time, you kind of have that feeling where you're like, this,
it's not it.
Yeah, I'm not in love with this spot. And for whatever reason, I can't explain it, but I'm just not loving it. And that's how I was starting to like, we need to go further. So we go a little further. And at that point, we'd kind of thrown our shells and our puffies on because it was windy and it was a little chilly. And
we were sweaty. That was the thing, is like as soon as we stopped. I was sweaty. Yeah. Get out of here.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm saying, no, yeah. No, dude, my shirt was soaked. But I took my shirt off and you just threw your shell over your shirt. And I'm like, that's a mistake. I took my t-shirt off and then threw on my mid layer, my puffy, because I knew if I sat there with that soaking wet t-shirt on me, it was gonna, if we sat there for any length of time, that chill was just gonna set into me, and I wasn't gonna be able to get rid of it. So I took my t-shirt off, and I didn't want to get sweated up again, and so I'm like, well, you know, we'll just hike up here. So we go up the trail a little bit further, and there was on the way up, we could kind of see the drainage off to the other side of the drainage we were wanting to hunt. And that like started looking better and better and started looking really good. And so that was kind of in the back of our heads the whole time, like that stuff over there looks really good. And we're looking at this stuff that doesn't look as good. So let's just walk over there and we'll look at that stuff. And as we're creeping around, we weren't creeping, but we were just slowly walking, so we didn't get sweated up again. And we're looking out over across the big, we're looking at the other mountain system and you can just see it. And I'm glassing that. And I'm like, dude, I can see if there's a bear over there, I'm going to see it. And we can see for miles, like square mile, like the most country we've ever been able to see this whole trip times 2, 3. And I think I told you, I'm like, dude, worst case scenario, if we can just pick a bear out over there, try to figure out how to get on them in the morning, because obviously you're not going to get over there today. And it was starting to get a little late in the day, and as we're moving a little further, I was thinking in my head, I'm like, we're getting closer on the other side of that spine of that ridge we're on, to where you could see that real green stuff. And I'm looking out ahead of us, and I'm looking at the terrain, and I'm like, man, if we could sit and glass this real green stuff, and then at the same time, and I didn't say this to you, but this is what was going through my head. I'm like, if we can sit right here somewhere on the trail where it's semi-flat, sit down, get comfortable, watch this real green stuff off to our left, and then just periodically, just burn through all that country in front of us. If we can just, worst case scenario, we find a bear over there and go to it in the morning. And I think I took like 3 more steps, and I look up the hill to my left, and I'm like, oh, I'm like, oh crap, a bear. And I turn around, look at you, and you're like, oh, like, no way.
No, there was a herd of bears.
Oh yeah. I turned around, looked at it, I said, oh crap, bear. And I hit my knee, so they immediately went out of view, because I just glanced over and I see this big black object, and then I see one underneath it moving, and and then I drop to my knee and they go out of sight. And so I'm like, oh crap, a bear. We hit our knees. And then you kind of see them, and it looked like multiple bears. And I think I said to you, I'm like, a whole herd of them, It's just, for, because it looked like multiple bears. And then we peek back up over, it's like, oh, there's just one bear there. But, there's a couple of dark, old burnt logs up there that looked like a bear too, that your brain just associates with bears when you see one moving. And I get my pack off quick. I start unclipping the rifle right away, because we're in range at this moment. We're probably kind of at the outskirts of our range, but we're in range. So I'm unclipping the rifle, and I look up. I don't know if I looked at it or not, but I'm like, who's shooting? And you're like, shoot the damn bear. I don't think I think you used the word, the F word, but you're like, shoot the bear. I'm like, yeah, this will hunt. At first it was kind of like, well, who strikes the bear? We're tramping at it and all this kind of stuff. And then it quickly, just due to the lack of bears we were seeing, the attitude in camp was awesome the whole time. And it quickly morphed into, we don't care. Just get a bullet in a bear. Like, we do not care. Get a bullet in a bear. We want a bear in camp type thing, And we're like right in the tail end of the hunt. And if it wouldn't have been you, and I didn't know you, out at it would have been like, no, there would have been some argument there. Like, no, you take the gun. And then, no, it's fine. You take, but it was one of those deals where it was like happening right now. And I'm like, who's shooting the bear? You're like, shoot the damn bear. And I'm like, okay, grab the rifle, go. We're not going to argue about this. We're just going to kill this bear. And, I totally view that bear as me and your bear. Like it just happened that the rifle was strapped to my pack and and you said go and I went. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah. So what's funny to me about this whole like scenario, and we're not even into like any of the rest of it, but like, so that all happens. And like when I was going out there, I was like, there is no way that for me with these guys who are, never been out West, they're dialing their gear, they're getting their rifles ready. They're, a lot went into this for everybody that went out there. And I'm like, there is no way that I'm going to go out there and shoot a bear in front of one of these guys. Like I want them to have that, experience, that memory, all that stuff. So, and then, I had said that and Keegan's like, I would be really disappointed if you didn't buy tag and like actually, hunt. And I mean, maybe now.
And those guys would have been pissed at you if you had a chance at a bear and you didn't have a rifle on you.
Yeah.
Like that's the caliber of the guys that we had out here. Was they would have been irritated that you did. So, you didn't even come out here with a gun, and then you're mostly because you didn't want to check your gun. You were trying to travel light. And I told you multiple times, I'm like, dude, my rifle's set up. You can just take my rifle. I got other rifles I can use. And I kind of had the same mentality. I was like,
till it was me.
Nothing I'm like, it's nothing for me to chew on a tag. I don't care. I don't have to be shooter. But then it was like the first day we go out and those guys are like, dude, you need to have a rifle on you. This is crap. Like, you're not going to walk around out here without a rifle. So they kind of gave me the thin crap. So then I started taking the rifle with me, and it's like, it was at that point, it was getting to the point in camp where it was just like, nobody really cared. Just somebody killed the bear,
Yeah.
And, so I knew like that was kind of going through my head at the moment. It was like the two guys that climb up this mountain are both the guys that fully intended on not shooting first. And it was, it was like one of those deals where it was like, in my head at the moment, you're like, shoot the damn bear. And I'm like, we're not going to argue about this. I'm going, it's just whatever. At this point, we got a day left, not even a full day. We got a day left. And it's like, this just needs to happen,
So like from this point, like it was super funny for me though. Cause like, Tom was saying, I feel like his favorite saying out there when we just saw bears was like, nobody panic, everybody panic. And, and so he like drops down, he's unclipping the rifle. And I'm still standing there. I'm got my glass up. I can't, I saw the bear, put my binos down. I'm bringing up and I'm keeping my hands like inside of my body, like I'm
not trying to silhouette yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I've been around enough animals that I understand like movement. And like Tom's down there unclipping his rifle, and I feel like his hair's on fire, like he's moving with urgency. And he's like, don't make any sudden movements. And I'm like literally like just I felt like I was just bringing my rangefinder up, and I'm like, oh my God. Okay. I got it.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I was like,
we were skylined, and I was worried about, that's why I dropped right to my knee so he couldn't see me, because I was nervous about us being skylined, that he was going to just pick us up real.
Yeah. And so then like the whole time, like we were out there, like in granted, we were like ranging things like at 1,400 yards, 900 yards, 600 yards.
Yeah.
And so he's like, get a range. And I was like, well, it's 402. And then he's like, okay. And he ran up there and he gets behind this tree and just flops down. And so like I get down and I'm like, cause I think I was already like on my knees or whatever, but I was like, I was like, now, like, I literally don't know what to do. Cause I'm like, he ran up there. I know he was having, in my mind, I'm like, he's having issues with his rangefinder. Like, I don't know if he's going to be able to range it. And he dropped down, and I was thinking like, oh my God, he's trying to like not be seen, not to get in the prone to shoot. Like that's, you know, when you're a rifle deer hunter, right? You're always just, you know, shooting offhand, or like maybe you got a rest or something. But like, I can tell you that of all the people in my family and all the deer that have been killed, I'm not sure that any one of them has been from the prone. You know what I mean? Like,
no, that's not a thing that happens in the Midwest.
So,
No.
so I was like, what the hell is he doing? And then I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. So I'm just standing back there, and like, I got the video camera, like I turned on the 360 cam, and I had my phone, I was videoing, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And then you got up and started moving, so I just moved with you. And then the video is so funny because like, you're up there, you get to a spot, you're like, do you see him? And I say, yeah, I see him. And he's just feeding behind the tree. I could see him through the tree. And she turns out, totally didn't know we were there. And then you're like, I saw you get the range, and then you're like down and you're fumbling around with your rifle, and then the bear comes out, and, you know, you're like the same thing. Like you were saying, we were skylined and, you know, all this stuff. Well, you're up on your knees fumbling around with your rifle, and I'm like, hey.
Yeah.
So funny.
I know. I think I turned around and gave you that look like, calm down. I know, you know. But so when I ran up to that, so I, you know, after I get the rifle off the pack, you know, we were kind of behind a little roll in the hill where she couldn't see us real good. She could just see, you know, our head and shoulders. So I get the rifle off the pack, and there's like there's like 2 or 3 pine trees that I knew if I could get behind, though, if I could get those in between me and the bear, that I could cut some distance, you know, because we're at 400 yards, and I'm like, you know, my archery mentality, or my, you know, my upbringing, I'm like, I know I can cut distance on this bear if I can. And so I start working just down the trail a little bit to try to get those trees in line, you know, just hunkered a little bit, but I'm keeping eyes on the bear. She picked her head up and looked over that way once, but she had no clue that we were there. So I kind of froze for a minute, and then she was aggressively feeding, like, and she was real scattered. She was like erratic in her movements. Like she was in a panic to eat as much as she possibly could, you know. I don't know if that's how I always feed or what, but she just looked like she was angry at the grass and not mushing, you know, to kill it. And so I'm watching her behavior, and I'm moving to get those trees in between us and her. And as soon as I get those trees in between us and her, and she goes out of view, I you know, run up the hill to cut like 50 yards off or whatever. And I get to a good spot. I get to the knob where there's a little bit of sagebrush in front of me, and there's a gap between the sagebrush where I'm like, all right, I'm going to take the shot right here. So I just right down on my belly immediately. I got the bipod up, and I had the scope dialed for 400 still. So I lay down, and I'm doing the math in my head. I'm like, scope dial at 400. I think I pulled my rangefinder up. I'm ranging that hill where I'm hoping because she's moving from left to right, and I'm hoping she's going to pop out behind the pine trees, you know, to the right of the pine trees. So I'm getting everything lined up. I range it again. I'm at like 360 or 355 or something. And the issue with my rangefinder earlier that I mentioned too, I was like, you know, I'd said multiple times, I'm like, man, my rangefinder really struggles out past 600 yards. You really got to hit the right thing to get a read on it. And your guys' rangefinders were like, oh yeah, it's 1,400 yards over there. And I'm like, that's not even the realm of what my rangefinder will do, you know? And so you took that as like my rangefinder's acting up and not working, and it works just fine. And inside of 600 yards, I don't have any issues with it. And I'm glad you moved up there with me, because as I was laying in that first spot, I'm like, where she's going to come out, I'm not going to be able to clear the sagebrush with my barrel. I'm like, this is no good. So I look up to my right and I see another spot right there where there's another little rise. I can lay on that. And I got a perfect shooting window to where she is. So I move up there. She's still behind, the trees are still between us and her. I get up to that next spot, lay down, re-range it, 350. I look at my dope, dial it. I'm like, I got time. She should be right there still. Get my scope down to 350, and I turn around, I'm looking up there, and I'm like, I don't see her anymore. Did she give us the slip? So I kind of looked at you, and I'm like, is she still there? You're like, yeah, behind the trees. I'm like, okay, good. Because I kind of had a panic moment, like she just went up over the ridge, or she got down, where we couldn't see her or something. I'm like, oh no. And you're like, yeah, she's right there. I'm like, okay, good. So I lay down, or I hadn't laid down yet. I was still on my knees looking at my dope, down my stope in, and I look up and I see her coming. I'm like, oh, she's almost here. At this point, I'm like, this bear's dead. She has no clue we're here. And I'm still on my knees. All I gotta do is lay down and go. And she starts coming up, and she's like, hey, 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 yelling at me. And I'm like, I know, it's called out. Don't get me all freaked out, because I was worked up more than I thought I was going to be. And I had to tell myself to get it together, and calm myself back down. And she, just feeds to the right. And she kind of does what she'd been doing. She does this, she's just kind of scattered eating, like doing loops and stuff, parents. And I just wait. I'm like, she's been here this whole time. She's not going anywhere. Take your time, breathe, get yourself together. So, and I think there was a moment where you're like, aren't you shooting? Because I think on the video, or you told me later, you're like, you said, smash it. Like, come on,
I know. Well, because it was feeding like so slowly, and it turned and it was feeding like right to left. And it was just like lumbering, like it was feeding very erratically. And then it was just kind of like lumbering, and then it stopped.
It flowed right down.
And I was like, smash him. And then
then
it started doing like the aggressive feeding again, and it made like a loop. It did like a 360, and then it was feeding back the other way. And I'm like, what the hell, man?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so when I was watching her and she slowed down like that, I started squeezing. I was about to touch one off, but I can't remember if she was quartered to or quartered away. I think she was quartered away. And I'm like, I don't want to hit the guts. They're just they're so short and round and compact. I'm like, I don't want to punch those guts. So just hold on a second, because I didn't want to deal with that mess. And I'm like, and I told myself, I'm like, you got time, just chill out. And she did. She kind of started aggressively there for a couple seconds, and then she slowed right down again and almost come to a stop. And she was still quartered away, but not as bad. And I squeezed, dude, and everything was I'm glad I shot a bunch, because I'm not like a real big rifle guy. I don't have a ton of experience. I've shot, millions of rounds my whole life, just being an outdoor kid. I'm very, very familiar with guns in general. But I'm not like a long distance guy. I've always just been a bow guy, a shotgun guy, inside 100 yards guy. And, and I'm glad I'd shot a bunch before this all went down, because I went right into muscle memory. Like, I remember when I was laying there, my form was exactly what I practiced. My hand was under the stock. I made a fist under the stock and under my chest to like hold. And I had a moment there where I was like, oh man, everything feels really good. This is, I kind of surprised myself. I was like, oh, you went right back to muscle memory, like exactly how you've been practicing. And I squeezed, I got a surprise shot, and it felt perfect, and it hit her exactly where I was aiming. And she took one bound, pretty much just one bound, and then just started rolling. And I didn't know if it was because I kind of knew like the angle she was. I'm like, I'm going to break her offside shoulder, and I'm okay with that. Because I don't want her running off. And she took one bound and immediately started rolling. So I racked another round in, zoomed my scope out real quick, and I just stayed on her for a couple seconds, like, don't you dare get up, type thing. I was pretty confident that she wasn't going anywhere, but I just wanted to make sure. And yeah, it worked out perfect. It was it kind of sealed the deal that we're not good at glassing bears. Like we need to just bump into them. So I think from now on, I'm going to be the type of bear hunter that just, happens upon them. So
Yeah, so she rolled like probably 100 yards down the hill and like settled on a rock, and then it was like, it was. I mean, it was super cool for me. Like when the video comes out, like you can see how excited like I am and you were, and like
yeah,
it was really, really cool. And then
we were both fist pumping.
And then to go, I was watching like the rest of the recovery videos. I don't think I sent those to you. Well, like even like the one video, you're like, is that you breathing hard? I'm like, yeah, dude, I was excited. And like when we finally get up to the bear, I was like,
I thought that you could hear me breathing on the camera. I'm like, holy crap, that camera picks up sound really well. Because I had to tell myself, there was a moment there where, because in the last handful of years, I've gotten really good at winding myself back down when there's a deer coming in, and I know I'm going to get a shot at with my bow. That hasn't always been the case. I've botched plenty of shots being too excited, and I've gotten pretty good at it. And there was a moment there where I was like, I literally told myself, get your shit together. What do you, like I got angry at myself for a second. I was like, dude, you know how to do this. Calm yourself back down, So I was breathing pretty hard. As soon as we got over behind that tree, as soon as I got that tree between us and her, I'm like, oh, this bear's dead. In my mind, that bear was dead. I'm like, she has no clue we're here, and I'm going to cut distance, and I've shot this shot. I've shot this shot a bunch of times. Like, I know I can make this shot. No problem. And so as soon as I had that in my mind, I was like, nobody panic, everybody panic, I started getting real excited. I was like, okay, calm back down, chill out.
Oh, it was cool. And so then we go up there and get this bear, and I look to my guide who, shoots it out from underneath the client, right?
Well,
doesn't know how to break it down.
If he had just left when everybody else left, it wouldn't have been an issue. I had to wait for everybody else to leave and go shoot a bear, and if he had just left when I left, then
yeah,
I wouldn't have had to shoot out for
you. Yeah, and that's even what I had said to you. I was like, yeah, now I'm ruining your weekend. So I'm staying through the weekend. I didn't think about any of it. I was like, this is the dates of the hunt. Like, I'm flying in this day. Oh, it's cheaper to fly out on Monday. So I'm like, I thought of none of it. I thought of myself only.
Well, it worked out just fine.
Yeah, worked out great.
It worked out great for me.
So in what would you say to like new bear hunters as far as like breaking down a bear?
I don't,
because the skin was super tough. Like that was.
Oh, yeah, that was the one thing that surprised me was so I had, I usually keep a knife in my pocket, like an everyday carry knife in my pocket, which just happens to be one of those, what are they, the
outdoor edge
or outdoor edge, yeah. This happens to be one of those with the replaceable blades. And usually I, when I'm hunting, I just put a fresh blade in it because I'm not using that work and don't want to. So I'll just put a fresh blade in it. If I got that in my pocket, and then I got, my main knife in my kill kit. And I just pulled my pocket knife out because I knew it was sharp, and I got to poke through there. Well, those outdoor edge knives have, the way the blades slide in, it just like I couldn't even get to the skin. The hair just swallowed. It just caught up in that slot where the knife slides in and tangled it all up. I'm pushing. I'm like, holy crap, this hide's really tough. Well, the hide wasn't that tough. It was just that there was so much hair that it just was like hitting the brakes on the knife before I could even get to the skin. I'm like, okay, something's got to change. So you handed me your knife, I think, and didn't I end up using your knife?
Yeah.
Okay. So you handed me your knife, and then I got through the hair, and I'm like, oh, the hide's actually, it's still a little tough, but it's not. I don't think it's necessarily the hide. It's just all the hair that you kind of manage, working around, and it dulls the knife up quick. It gets in the way, and so yeah, that I would say, probably make sure you got a fixed blade with you. Once you get the skin, once you get your initial cuts, from the paws to the center and up the belly, it's like once you get those initial cuts done, you're not really struggling with the hair after that because you're skinning. So those replaceable blades work great for that. Maybe think about having a fixed blade on you so you can manage that hair a little bit better. And then also, those fixed blades are going to help because those wrist joints are hard to pop apart, and you got to really get in there and get at that cartilage if you're not going to skin the paws in the field, which I don't know who would. Certainly not me. I'd rather a professional tackle that. So I'm going to pop them at, typically you're going to pop them at the wrist joint, and those wrist joints are tough. They're hard to navigate, and they're kind of tucked up in behind the pad, so you don't really want to cut up super far. So you're kind of up in there digging around and prying and dulling your blade up pretty bad. So
you honestly just need to get mad. I mean, that's what I told,
yeah,
yeah. I'm bending it back, and he's like, move the pad here, da 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 da, and then he's just like, give me that thing, and just twist it off, and then the next one, I'm like, I think we're at that point in time where you just need to get mad and twist it off.
Yeah,
like, okay. That's the preferred method.
Yeah, grab it, pop a bang in your forehead, get real mad, and shake a lot. Sometimes you can, but you're not going to do that unless you get some of that cartilage busted out first. You're not just going to grab those things and twist them off and break them. They're pretty solid.
Yeah, so then we break down the bear and we get to pack it off the mountain now. And one of the things Tom had said on the polo, and I felt like I should address it here, is he's like, I don't like the pack that you had. And I had literally a 2,000 cubic inch pack, which was fine for a day pack, but it was too small for it was probably right on the border of too small for even what we were doing. But I had to use it as a carry-on and all this stuff. So
yeah,
it was going to be sufficient. And then now we got to pack a bear out. And so I had to rearrange everything. And I just want you to know, Tom did take the hide and the head, but I took more meat down than he did. So
no, you did not.
I did too. I had the back straps and a front and a rear quarter.
So I had a front and rear.
And that's it.
And the hide and skull.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you did take more meat than me.
Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, but my statement stands. Your pack is stupid.
It's not a mountain pack, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it could be. It just, you had a lot of crap jammed in it. And for a day hunt, it's kind of the perfect size. But for packing, if you would have been up there by yourself,
yeah,
with what you had in that pack, you'd have been.
I'd have come out looking like Jeremiah Johnson with that bear on my head.
Yeah, you'd come out looking like that the Continental Divide hunter that's got tin cups hanging off her hip and everything else. Clank and clank and clank. You'd have tied those meat bags together and throw them over your shoulder.
Yeah. But like I said, when we were coming down packing that bear out, and just that experience, breaking an animal down in the field and then having to pack it out. And I know lots of guys do that with deer. I've never done that with deer. So it was just
It was fun.
icing on the cake, right? I mean, it was like
Yeah.
the epitome of like what, at least for me, like I went out there for, and that, you know, when I can go back to the elk hunt where I killed the elk with a rifle. Prior to that, like I went out there and got to quarter up 2 elk, and so we quartered up 3 elk now in the field. Never had to pack them out, but the experience alone of being able to do that was just, you know, and then going back and, you know, fleshing out the hide and all that stuff, like, was totally like worth the experience. And, you know, for me, it isn't, you know, you can say, yeah, we killed that bear. And honestly, either one of us could have pulled the trigger and we'd be having the same conversation, just with a different thing.
Yep.
And, you know, that's really, you know, it's one of those things where like, every deer that you let walk, you could have killed. Right. But or like, that's what people who don't kill bears say, like, we did it. But I mean,
yeah, no, it was, no, I honestly feel like it was just a matter of, there was a 2-second decision there that decided who was shooting and who wasn't. And that could have gone one way or the other. And if you would have pulled that trigger on that bear, I'd have felt like, you know, it was definitely, there wasn't like some skill set I had that deemed me the better hunter that killed this bear. That's not one of those situations that happened at all. It was just like, that could have gone both ways and ended the same exact way. You know, you could have laid down on that rifle and shot it right there where we're at. It's just, neither of us being like long range guys, you know, 400 yards doesn't seem long to a lot of guys, but that's, you know, I got to imagine for both of us that,
yeah,
you know, that's the longest shot we've probably ever taken on anything.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the thing is like, the experience and being able to do that. And again, like the same thing, like knowing like who you are as a person. Like, I know that I can give you a bunch of shit and say that, you know, you shot it out from under me and all this stuff. And it's 100% in jest. It's just, it's fun. And I know that you would have done the same thing. You'd have said, well, I just guided you in there, you know, you just fly in, use my rifle.
Oh, yeah. You'd have been getting a ramp and shit for sure. Yeah. 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 And if I would, and that goes both ways too, you know, that was one of those, that's, you know, in my mind when I'm like, who's shooting this thing? And you're like, shoot that dang thing. And if it would have been somebody that I didn't know that well, you know, I'd have been like, you know, how's he going to feel about this? But it went through my head where it was like, I don't give a shit. You know, I just know you're not that type of guy. That's like, you know,
yeah.
It's like, somebody just kill it. You know, who cares at this point? Just get the bear on the ground.
Yeah. I don't want to walk anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I mean, I don't think we touched base on the python enough, but, you know, that wasn't a heavy pack. It was, you know, your pack, I think both of our packs were probably pretty similar. You know, yours is just like carrying a bowling ball versus mine's carrying, you know, the size, you know, it's like a bowling ball versus a boulder size reference, but the weight of them was the same. I mean, I think they were pretty similar. We didn't weigh them or nothing like that, but we were both carrying weight, but not a ton. They were 60 pounds maybe?
Yeah. I would say that they were in that range. And
yeah.
But for me, downhill's way better than uphill. So.
Oh, see, I'm complete opposite. I'd way rather go uphill than downhill. And so it was, you know, for the packs, they weren't like 100-pound pack. There wasn't like a brutal pack. But the downhill sucked. Yeah, it's easy on the lungs, but you know, and I got an issue with my left ankle because it's numb from back surgery, and you know, my bottom of my foot's numb, my ankle, I've got some atrophy there. But I kind of I always have an issue with it. It wants to roll all the time, and thank goodness I have strong ankles, because even when it rolls, it's not a huge issue. It's just like you're constantly a rock I would step on with my right foot, my ankle just holds up to it, doesn't roll. That same exact rock, I put my left foot on it, especially when I get a little bit of weight on my back, it wants to roll all the time. So I tend to like, if I step on something uneven with it, I kind of always do the stumble step. And I did that, 100 times on that trail going back down. Yeah. And I'm like, left ankle, like this is starting to irritate me. And
through the Blackwater bayous and in the dark Louisiana night floats a duck camp, alive with the sounds of swamp pop and the smells of Cajun cooking. From the Mississippi Delta in Venice to the Cajun prairies of the Southwest, me and the Duck Camp Dinners crew will be hunting and eating it all. This is Duck Camp Dinner. Join me, Chef Jean-Paul Bourgeois, and the whole crew every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV.
One of the most legendary shows in the outdoors is on Waypoint TV. Don't miss Primo's Truth About Hunting, Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV, the destination for outdoor entertainment.
And then all of a sudden, every once in a while, I get like this plantar fasciitis thing going on in the pad of my right foot. If I really like abuse my, let's say an elk hunting, after like day 4 or 5, my right foot starts to hurt me a little bit. It's like that middle toe tendon area that does something, and that started almost immediately. I'm like, oh really, now we're gonna do so. And it was steep, it was steep coming out of there
in the dark.
And in the dark, wearing headlamps, and I'm rolling my ankle, and then my right foot hurting me now, and I'm like, oh awesome. So
I just want to add one more thing. So we're up there, packing out this bear and processing it anyways. And we're just like, ho hum, do. And Tom looks at me and he's like, we should probably like look around for bears, like grizzly bears or anything like that. Like, it's like, and then we're walking down the hill in the dark, and he's like, at this point, because I had the other rifle in my pack, and I had to remove it to put the bear in there. And he's like, how familiar are you with the Winchester Model 70? I'm like, do we gotta have to have it on off safe to rack it? And you're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. But he's like, it was like, there's no way. Like, we were just walking, meat sticks down the hill.
Blind.
Yeah, in the dark.
Well, and it was just one of those deals where I was like, I should probably mention to him to like maybe look up and pan his head every once in a while. We're just ringing the dinner bell, Yeah. So, yeah. And then of course every dark drainage you get into, it's pitch black. And then and that's what brought that conversation up, was on the way out, something just busted up the rocks in front of us. And I said, I was like, how familiar were you with that Model 70? You're like, yeah, I got it. I'm like, all right, we're good.
No, but it was, I truly, and I know you do too, but I truly wish, like, those guys would have been there for that in any capacity. Just because it was super cool. And it's, just like in any camp, when anybody's successful, like everybody wants to go track it. Everybody wants to see. It doesn't matter if it's a doe family group, a spike, or, a legal 8-point or whatever, it doesn't really matter. Everybody just is super excited. And I think, to some level, that gives you, and I never really thought about this before until kind of like this conversation in this camp, because I don't usually think of things in terms of like with whitetails anyways, like that it can be done, but I think it gives people like hope, like, oh yeah, like that's awesome. Like, deer are starting to fall now, like, and in this situation where we worked really hard to, we glassed a ton of country, put on, hundreds and hundreds of miles, and covered a lot of country. I think that would have been like a very much motivating thing to say, like, they're out here, we can do it,
Yeah. And even as sucky it is, as it is from my perspective, that it happened after the guys left, because it could have happened at any moment, you know. In my head, it's like, you know, that definitely sucked. Like, I'm like, "Dang, I really wish this would have happened," because that's what these camps are great for. Is just like, guys, everybody in camp just wants to, you know, like you mentioned, we just want to see people, you know, killing stuff, and I just it's icing on the cake for the camp. But you know, one thing I think, even just us going out, you know, a day or two after these guys left and getting it done, it's like, I think it still does have that effect on, if I know the guys that were out here well enough now, I think it still does have that effect on them, where it's like, it can be done, you know, even though they weren't physically here for it. It's like, okay, it actually happened. Like, and it kind of solidifies that, because there was some cold calls, and there was even as bad, you know, as the weather treated us, and as bad as the glassing treated us, and you know, through all that, those guys were still keeping it positive. And I think they still had that in their mind, like, there were some cold call timing issues. Yep, okay, we're close. Like, this could happen at any moment. Everybody's spirits were still high. Everybody's attitude was great. And then for that, you know, for us to go and kill one even later, I think it probably still does, you know, kind of solidify the fact that, you know, it can be done. And the other thing to that too is, like, I don't think we touched enough on, is Brian, Stan, Wyatt, Keegan, you, did I get everybody? Yeah, that's everybody. The caliber of men makes a huge difference on these. It's a big deal for these camps. And we just had guys that are just genuinely positive, ready, you know, ready for the stalk. They never got negative. You know, and I said in the post, they came with an arsenal of jokes and laughs. I mean, you know, when you have a camp like that, because you've mentioned before, it's like catching lightning in a bottle. And that's really what it really only takes. One sourpuss in the group to take the cap off the bottle and let the lightning out. And these guys it was, you know, it's just going to be another one of those memories etched in my brain forever, of just, you know, having good guys, jokes, good time. You know, it's just it would have been positive all the way around, even if we wouldn't have, you know, topped it off with a kill at the very end. So I think that can't be emphasized enough. You know, I think some of these people come into these camps with the idea of, like, I don't know what they're looking for out of them, but when you get guys like that together, that, and I would say like 95%, 99% of the guys in these camps are that kind of guy, where it's just like, we know what we're getting into. We know the atmosphere is going to be, you know, a camp's, you know, a deer camp or a bear camp or something like that. It's not where you go to, like, kill the Boone and Crockett. You know, it's about the camp, and there's just a time and a place for it. And, you know, that attitude just, it makes the camp 10 times better.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is that, you know, I think you're right about the guys, you know, being excited about that it can be done. And now, you know, if you look at it just like any other hunt, like a whitetail hunt or whatever, and unless you're Tom Taylor, right, you can build from this and go back to a spot that you had seen before. Like,
right.
Like, yeah. Tom doesn't like to go back where he has success or almost success. He wants to see new country every time. He wants to make it literally as hard as possible.
No, I like to go. I would like to go back to the areas I have success. I just have this, like, stupid idiot factory in my head that, like, veers me off course all the time, and I end up going and chasing the squirrel off in the other area I've never been in. You know, it's just, like, hinders me more than anything else.
But I think that we can certainly, you know, for, you know, if you decide to let people come out and you know, kind of quarterback this thing again, like we can definitely build off of this, and
Right.
and I think the guys that were out there like now know like what they're getting themselves into, and they can adjust from there and say, okay, this is what we did. This is where we found bears. This is, you know, what Tom and Adam did. And so we can kind of prepare, build, you know, all that stuff for that, where, because I mean, you know, nothing against you, but like you said at the beginning, like, it wasn't like you're the world's greatest bear hunter. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's like we're all learning together. So we can all learn from this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was very open about that up front. And those guys didn't give a crap. They knew, you know. But yeah, it's just like anything else that, you know, hunting is work, and it takes time. You know, obviously there's a million ways to skin that cat. You can take the easy road if you want, but you know, if you're going to do these DIY public land style hunts, whether you're in the Midwest or out west, you know, wherever in the country, it just takes time. It takes reps. It takes screwing it up. You know, and the more you do it, the more you learn, and pretty soon you just start to get it a little bit dialed in, you know, and some of us learn faster than others. You know, some of us do things to handicap ourselves worse than others on purpose or by accident or whatever reasons. But it ultimately, the one factor that you can't avoid is that, you know, it doesn't happen overnight. Like, you can watch all the YouTube videos, you can listen to all the podcasts and all the great information that's on all those things. But the one thing that'll get you there faster than anything is just dive in and doing it. And even if it's brand new, if it's something you're interested in and you're not sure, you know, you're not going to do it unless you just jump in with both feet and just try. And usually that first one, you know, whether it's just, even if you're hunting the same species but in a different state, or you're going to try a different style, you know, like you're a rifle hunter and you want to go to bow hunting, usually it's that first one of that thing that is the biggest hurdle, and that's the one that you learn the most things on, you know, or it's the one that cuts the edge. You know, it cuts the most fat off of the, you know, thing you're trying to learn. It's like, if you just get that one under your belt and just have realistic expectations and just try to take as much information as you can, it's, you know, it's one giant hurdle you can get over, and then, you know, you're on the right path from then on. And, you know, so I think that's something guys need to keep in mind when they're thinking about doing some of this stuff. It's like, just don't be scared, just go, you know, just get that one new one out of the way.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. You know, it turns out like I've been fortunate enough to do a lot of these out of state hunts, and I've hunted a bunch of different states. And, you know, you can listen to all the YouTube, you can, you know, listen to all the podcasts, you can read all the books. But I mean, that first elk hunt, when I went and just shut the doors of the truck, climb up that first 200-foot ridge, and you're standing up there, and then it's like, what do you do now? I mean, I really do. I think a hunt like this, is a very, very good kind of like shallow end of the pool to get your feet wet, to know like how vast the country is, how much, you know, what worked, what didn't, what you can improve on for next time. And like what I was trying to get at before, I don't think I got around to it, but like when you're hunting whitetails, you know, a lot of times, you know, I've heard guys say that you go to a new spot, new area, and you have like a 3-year plan or whatever. And I think that this is definitely one of those things where, just like any hunting, I don't know when I said it, if it was on the first day or the day when we killed, or when me and you were just driving around glassing. But I was like, it only takes one, everything can change in 20 seconds, just like it did right there. Where it was like, oh my God, I heard a bears, like all of a sudden.
Well, they heard them.
So, but you got to get out there and you got to do it, and then be able to do some of this association where, that looks great, but there's no, I mean, how many times did we say that? Like even if we saw a bear over there, like we couldn't hunt it. Like, so there's some like realistic stuff that you just can't get by, not going out there. So, for
Adam, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, for guys who have like this want, or, they're considering it, like, it's just something that you just have to go do. And it doesn't matter, and everything that Mark, I felt like through this, and I feel like the other guys could probably attest to this too. But everything that Mark Livesey said about, you want to become a better elk hunter, go spring bear hunting, because like I said, the amount of elk, the amount of terrain, the amount of like nuances, you want to learn how to hunt deer. Well, you drive around and you watch them all summer long. We can't do that with elk, but this is an opportunity for us to see elk, how they interact with each other, what they're doing, where they're at. Like, maybe they're not going to be in
the country.
Yeah. But maybe they're not going to be in that drainage, in the fall or whatever, but you can see elk doing elk things. You can see mule deer doing mule deer things, how they bedded, all this stuff that you just don't get to see. And so I would say just to definitely, go out and give it a crack,
Yeah. Yeah. And Mark's, I mean, there's a lot of truth in that, what he said, because you're getting to look at a lot of elk country. And if you are planning on doing an elk hunt in 2 or 3 years or something like that, a bear hunt would be a great way to justify to go get eyes on that specific country that you're looking at going into. And that'd cut that curve down even more, to just get eyes on, instead of just rolling up for the first time. And you'd be that much further ahead. And, Brian, Keegan and Wyatt even said it, it was the first day they were out here. It was like, we just want you, just take us to an area where, not one of your spots necessarily, but just take us to an area so we can just look at what it looks like in real life versus our maps, because they've never been in the mountains before like this. And so that was an eye opener for it. Just that in particular was like, oh, okay, what I'm looking at the maps is not what I thought I was going to see out here, So that's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing too is like, you'd be surprised when if you're the type of guy that just wants to focus solely on, one species, mature whitetails or something like that, then and you don't want to waste, you're just hyper focused on that thing, that's obviously, do your thing. But if you're the type of guy that just wants to kind of like generally get better, like woodsmanship skill, like outdoor, just generally better, like hunting skills, outdoor skills overall, stretching out and doing different things and learning new things, and you would be amazed at how a hunt like this, or a hunt in a different state, or a hunt for hogs down in Georgia, or something like that, if you just kind of stretch your repertoire out a little bit, you'd be amazed at how much better of a hunter it makes you. You're going to pick up little things here and there, and it's just going to make you better at that one thing that you're focused on, the majority of the time. And you'd be surprised how much it really translates, how much of it really translates over.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, I'll be curious to see, come the Patreon hunt this year, to kind of revisit these guys, and ask them, how their seasons are going, or how they're looking at it. Cause I know after my first elk hunt, it changed my confidence, in the woods for sure.
Yeah.
So, but man, like I said, it was definitely worth the price of admission to, be able to guide you and pack out that animal for you. So it was like a reverse thing. It was like I paid the money and then I had to do all the work and everything. It was weird.
Yep.
So, but I really do. And I know that the other guys feel the same way. And like, we can't really, like express it or, repay you, but thank you so much for, opening your home and taking time off of work and your family and everything to go, babysit us in the mountains.
Yeah, no, it was a blast, and it was, just having everybody out here was taming enough for me. It was fun to just take a break and hit the reset and, chew the fat with good people and laugh and joke, and definitely good to have in your life at times. So.
Well, awesome, man. I really do appreciate it. So thanks.
Yeah, appreciate you, brother.
Yep. All right. Have a good night, Tom.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Waypoint Podcast Network, brought to you in part by HuntStand, the #1 hunting and land management app.
In Wild Country, rules were not created by man. Don't miss Wild Country, Wednesdays from 7 to 11 p.m. Eastern. Presented by Primos. Speak the language. Waypoint TV, the destination for outdoor entertainment.